Dr. Maya Chen had always been meticulous with her work, but tonight something felt different in the lab. The prototype shrinking serum glowed with an ethereal blue light as she made her final adjustments. At 5'8" with long black hair and an athletic build from years of rock climbing, Maya was confident and determined, qualities that had gotten her this far in her groundbreaking research. Just one more calibration, she murmured to herself, her bare feet padding softly against the cold laboratory floor. She'd kicked off her heels hours ago, finding comfort in the cool tiles as she worked late into the night.
Kale Stormweaver had always felt the whispers between worlds, but tonight they screamed. The 17-year-old apprentice mage stood at the edge of the Twilight Sanctum's highest tower, silver hair whipping in winds that carried voices from realms beyond mortal understanding. His mismatched eyes, one storm gray, one crystalline blue, reflected the aurora-like tears in reality that had been appearing across the 7 kingdoms for weeks. Master Theron was right, he murmured, pressing his palm against the ancient stone. The tower's protective wards hummed beneath his touch, but even they couldn't silence the growing chorus of otherworldly calls. The convergence is beginning. Far below, the Academy of Ethereal Arts slept peacefully, unaware that their most troubled student had just discovered he could see the fractures in existence itself, fractures that seemed to be calling his name. A pulse of otherworldly energy shattered Kale's concentration, sending him stumbling backward from the tower's edge. The ancient stones beneath his bare feet grew warm, then scorching hot, as if the very foundation of the sanctum was rejecting something fundamental about reality. Then he saw it, a figure materializing within one of the larger tiers, stepping through dimensional fabric as easily as walking through a doorway. The being was tall, ethereal, with skin that seemed to shift between starlight and shadow. When it spoke, its voice resonated in languages that predated mortal civilization. "Young Veil Walker," it said, though its lips never moved. The words simply existed in Kale's mind. The barriers weaken. The old bindings fail. You must choose, seal the rifts and doom countless realms to isolation, or learn to navigate the infinite paths between worlds. Kale's hands trembled as arcane symbols began burning themselves into his palms, marks he'd never seen before, yet somehow understood completely. The ethereal being extended one translucent hand toward Kale, and despite every instinct screaming danger, the young mage found himself reaching out to touch it. The moment their fingers met, reality exploded into infinite possibilities. Kale was no longer standing on the tower, he was falling through layers of existence itself. He glimpsed worlds of perpetual twilight, where crystal trees sang ancient songs, realms where magic had crystallized into living mountains, and dimensions where time flowed backwards through rivers of liquid starlight. The Nexus calls to you. The being's voice followed him through the dimensional cascade. 7 primary realms, countless secondary planes, and the void between that hungers to devour them all. You are the first Veil Walker born in 1,000 years, the only one who can traverse the path safely. When Kale's vision cleared, he stood in a vast library that couldn't possibly exist, its shelves stretching infinitely upward, filled with books that wrote themselves. "Welcome to the Nexus Library," whispered a voice like rustling parchment. A figure emerged from between the towering shelves, an elderly woman whose skin had the texture of aged leather and whose eyes held the depth of accumulated centuries. "I am Keeper Aurelia. I have waited so very long for a Veil Walker to arrive." Call spun around, trying to process the impossibility of his surroundings. Books floated through the air, their pages fluttering as they rewrote themselves mid-flight. Staircases spiraled in directions that defied geometry, leading to sections of the library that seemed to exist in different seasons. Some shelves covered in autumn leaves, others dusted with snow that never melted. "This is a dream," he whispered, but the burning symbols on his palm suggested otherwise. "Dreams and reality are merely different chapters in the same book here," Aurelia smiled. "Come, young one. The Codex Universalis awaits you, the only tome that chronicles every possible path through the multiverse."
Aurelia led him through corridors where the very air shimmered with contained knowledge. The Codex Universalis sat upon a pedestal of crystallized time, its covers bound in what looked like compressed starlight. The moment Kale approached, the book opened itself, revealing pages that displayed not text, but living visions of infinite realities. "7 primary realms," Aurelia intoned, pointing to the first page. "Ethermore, the sky cities where wind mages rule from floating kingdoms. Verdania, the Ever Forest, where every tree holds 1,000-year memory. The shattered peaks, where Earth Shapers carve their stories into living stone. Aquatica, the sunken empire beneath endless oceans. Pyria, the ember wastes where flame-born spirits dance through volcanic gardens. Each name caused the symbols on Kale's palms to pulse brighter, as if responding to some deeper recognition. But something hunts between the realms. Aurelia's voice grew grave. The Void Wraiths, entities that feed on the connections between worlds. They grow stronger with each passing day, and only a Veilwalker can stop them.
As if summoned by her words, the temperature in the library dropped suddenly. Shadows began writhing at the edges of Kale's vision, and he could hear something like the sound of reality tearing, a noise that made his teeth ache and his soul recoil. "They found you already," Aurelia whispered, her ancient eyes wide with fear. "The Wraiths can sense when a new Veilwalker awakens. Quick, young one, you must choose your first destination." The Codex's pages flipped rapidly, showing 7 glowing portals. Kale could feel the pull of each realm, the exhilarating freedom of Ethermore's endless skies, Verdania's deep connection to living memory, the raw creative power of the shattered peaks. A horrific screech echoed through the library as something dark and formless began seeping through the walls. Books screamed as their pages withered black at the entity's touch. Aurelia pressed a small crystal compass into Kale's trembling hands. "This will guide you between realms. But remember, every choice shapes destiny. Choose wisely, Veilwalker, for the fate of all realities rests in your..." Her words were cut short as darkness engulfed the library.
Kale's hand closed instinctively around the crystal compass as the Void Wraith's tendrils lashed toward him. The ancient symbols on his palms blazed like miniature suns, and without conscious thought, he pressed his palm against the nearest glowing portal in the Codex. The world dissolved into swirling winds and endless sky. He materialized on a platform of crystallized cloud, gasping as hurricane force winds threatened to tear him from his precarious footing. Before him stretched Aethermore, floating islands connected by bridges of hardened air, their cities carved from compressed storm essence. The sky itself was a tapestry of perpetual aurora. But something was wrong.
Dark veins pulsed through the aurora like an infection, and several of the floating cities listed dangerously, their levitation magic failing. Another refugee from the Convergence. A voice called from above. Kale looked up to see a figure descending on wings of pure wind. A young woman with platinum hair and eyes like captured lightning.
The woman landed gracefully, her wind wings folding into wisps of visible air. She wore robes that seemed to be cut from living clouds, constantly shifting between white and silver. A circlet of woven lightning crowned her head, marking her as nobility. "I am Zephyra Stormborn, third Windride of the Azure Court," she announced, though her eyes held wariness. "The Skyfather has been expecting. Someone, though perhaps not quite so young." Kale struggled to find his voice against the howling winds. "I am Kale. I don't know what I am doing here. There was this library and darkness, and save your breath, Earthling," Zephyra interrupted, though not unkindly. "The Convergence brings many unexpected guests to our realm. But tell me, do you bear the Veilwalker's mark?"
When Kale hesitantly showed his burning palms, her expression grew grave. "Then you arrive at a most perilous time. Come, the Skyfather must see you immediately if we can reach the Palace of Winds before the next void storm hits."